My grandma deeded money in her will, by user space and rice. So, I don't know the full story, but I do know the gist of it. My grandma raised her kids with love. She practically spoiled them, and she raised her grandkids too, me and my two sisters. Two of them, my uncle and my dad, became addicts, and the last, my aunt, became estranged. I've got tons of relatives, so I don't know if I've ever met her. If I have, I don't remember her face or name, so let's call her Little Miss J. J left without looking back, and constantly asked my grandmother for money. She hardly repaid grandma, which was a big mistake, because, surprise surprise, my grandma was on top of every penny that she had. She was the best I've ever seen when it came to handling funds. But, 2 years ago, my grandma was diagnosed with cancer. She worked her butt off her whole life, was the strongest woman on the planet, and nobody got by without paying her their dues. Eventually, my grandma dies. In her will, she gives money to my grandpa, my dad, my uncle, me, and my sisters. Everyone in her family. But, when it comes to Jay, she says, "You still owe me $14. I do not know if she actually somehow debt Jay $14 in a will, or just put it in there as a little slap in the face. All Jay was worried about when grandma died was the money, and she got none of it. I can't be prouder to have a grandma that wouldn't leave this world without the last laugh." Edit, I guess I forgot to include it. Jay is also a drug addict, that's why she needed my grandmother's money constantly. My grandmother was a great woman, and a great mother to me. She raised me well. And another edit, because people want to blame my grandmother, she raised 3 kids that were hers, and 3 kids that weren't. The kids that were hers turned into drug addicts, the 3 kids that weren't turned into people who could handle their emotions and found therapy for themselves. I think it was a generational problem rather than the bad parenting she's being accused of. She was the kindest woman I'd ever met, but also the strongest. All 3 of us are getting therapy for things that aren't related to my grandmother. My uncle, my dad, and my aunt, are not. Do we not think that maybe the generational differences of people who were often not given needed resources, and people with the technology to find needed resources, might be a factor in how they handled their mental illnesses? Roommates stopped contributing, so we left them nothing, by usernot_a_bimbo. This happened during my junior year of college. I, Claire, lived with 5 other women. I'll call them Abby, Brooke, Danny, Ella, and Fran. When we signed the lease on the house, we agreed to a 1-year deal, June 1st to May 31st. The house was off campus and unfurnished, so we needed things to make it feel like home. Prior to moving in, we all sat down and decided what we needed for the house and who was going to bring what, and also settled on a chore schedule. We also decided that we'd have a household supply fund set up so we could buy things we all would use like toilet paper, paper towels, dish detergent, and laundry detergent. As it turns out, Danny, Ella, Francesca and I brought most of the stuff we needed, like a couch, small dining table, dishes, silverware, drinking glasses, cookware, food storage containers, etc. Things went pretty well during fall semester. Shortly after that, however, things started to decline. Abby's boyfriend Andy basically moved in with us, and the 2 of them started acting like they owned the place. Left a dirty dish in the sink? They'd leave a passive-aggressive note about how rude it was to do that. Come home after the library closed at midnight? Abby and Andy went to bed at 10, and if you woke them up there was hell to pay. Pretty soon, Brooke and her boyfriend Brad were acting in much the same way. By early February, it was clear to Danny, Ella, Fran, and me that we did not want to live with Abby and Brooke another year. The 4 of us found a different off-campus place and signed a lease. We let Abby and Brooke know, and from then on, the 2 of them, plus their boyfriends, went from partial jerks to complete jerks. They'd do things like stop the clothes washer mid-wash, take our clothes out, dump them on the floor, and start their own laundry. They'd use up all the hot water by taking super long showers. They'd write "return to sender" on our mail. They destroyed flowers our boyfriends sent or brought to us. They refused packages. They stopped contributing to the shared supply fund and stopped doing chores. About a week before Memorial Day, Ella got a call from the landlord on our new place saying the previous tenants had moved out and we could move in early if we'd like at no charge. Danny, Ella, Fran, and I discussed it and decided to get out of our current house ASAP, but didn't tell Abby and Brooke of our plans. Memorial Day weekend rolls around and Abby, Brooke, and their boyfriends head out of town to go camping while the rest of us put our plan into action. With the help of friends, Danny, Ella, Fran, and I got all of our stuff moved out. And when I say all, I mean all living room furniture, dining room furniture, dishes, silverware, cookware, food storage containers, baking supplies, shower curtain, rugs, lamps, vacuum, broom, dustpan, etc. We also decided that since neither Abby nor Brooke had contributed to the shared household supply fund since March, the toilet paper, paper towels, dish detergent, laundry detergent, and so forth was ours, so we took all of that too. Abby, Brooke, and their boyfriends were shocked to return from their camping trip to an empty house. What made our petty revenge even sweeter was that on their way home from the camping trip, all four of them got food poisoning and were really, really sick. The scathing texts we got about moving out unannounced and taking all shared household goods, especially the toilet paper? Priceless. Danny, Ella, Fran, and I, our great friends, still get a good laugh about the situation about 12 years later. None of us have heard from Abby or Brooke since graduation. I ruined my stepmom's 50th birthday party over cake, by user even summer 2486. Repost here from r/justnormal, as suggested by a number of users. My stepmom was a nasty woman to grow up with. Mean, vindictive, and had an inferiority complex that she used to attack anyone who was doing well, especially those doing better than her. My dad spent my childhood over the road, and mom was in and out of inpatient facilities until she passed, so a lot of my time was spent with her being my only available carer/guardian. I won't bullshit and say I was perfect, but I wasn't bad. Good student, involved in community and school activities, and as soon as I could work, I got a job. My biggest issue was that I often took an attitude with her and her family, all of whom sucked to be near. These people have been in my life since I was 4, I am now in my late 20s, and not one of them were ever supportive or kind. I had aspirations to go to school and be a psychologist, a teacher, a therapist, a veterinarian. Honestly, I think I just liked the structure school offered and wanted to continue with it after graduation, but as soon as I was handed my diploma, my stepmom handed me a notice to vacate the property. Less than a month later, I was gone. To be fair to him, my father did try to intervene and prevent the eviction since it was his home, but she was the main occupant in the house, and we were informed by a local cop that she could in fact remove me from the home and press trespassing charges if I ever came back. To this day, I think he was likely full of shit but didn't want to deal with it. So I was 18, homeless and supposed to start college a few months later, and I had chosen a local school and rejected better scholarships so I could stay home and save money on housing. I found a place with a man that became my best friend, and I did try to attend school, but honestly it just didn't feel right anymore. Between full-time work just to scrape by and the mental health issues that arose in the aftermath, I couldn't continue and dropped out. My dad was unable to offer much support, and most of my family never cared to intervene since she had convinced the majority of them that I had chosen basically to go NC with them. She would call and gloat about how hard the real world is, make snide comments about my dying mother, and in the same breath offer sympathy and support if I came back home. At holiday dinners, she would tell everyone I was the first psychologist she'd ever seen working the till at McDonald's, and if I defended myself, I would be chastised for not taking a joke. It was humiliating, and after a few years I realized I could block her and she couldn't do shit about it. So I did. My life did turn around. I work as a pastry chef in a bakery I adore, and would love to buy someday if the owner would let me when he retires. It's not a life I ever imagined for myself, but it's a good one that I share with my fiancé, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. In the past 2 years, I resumed contact with my dad, and as a result, his wife again. He's still a doormat and she's still a cunt, but she's not picking on a little girl anymore, and I bite back now. I've also managed to contact my mom's family, who had been estranged from her for decades before she died, and met people who could have truly loved me if they had known I existed. Dad's family are kept at arm's length, but I finally have a family that I can talk about when my friends are discussing holiday plans, and that's all I ever wanted. Doing what I do for a living, I always show off a bit at family gatherings, and I've often made custom cakes for relatives when asked. Boundaries have been established, and after the first cousin who tried pushing them found herself without a cake on her son's birthday, they are respected. Stepmom hates my job. She hates that I'm happy, that I don't care if I'm a bit plump, that I'm engaged and she's not allowed near the wedding. She hates that I'm good at what I do, and try as she might, the only thing she can ever insult is the fondant. Which, fair. I don't care for it either. At my dad's birthday party last month, I baked a lovely 3-tier red velvet cake for him and provided numerous pastries as well as a cookie buffet. My boss is a godsend for letting me use his industrial kitchen to make it all. Day of, all stepmom could say was my cake tasted like a box mix, and that was it. 2 decades of abuse and I was finally done trying. I spent days making everything I provided, all free of charge, and she compared my labor and knowledge to fucking Betty Crocker. No shame to anyone who bakes/likes Betty or any other boxed mix, but it's like comparing fast food to your own home cooking and the fast food being preferred. A total slap in the face to the hours of labor and effort, and years spent honing and perfecting recipes. She asked me at the beginning of February to bake her cake for her 50th, no other details other than she didn't want red velvet, and it was for 100 people. I agreed. I stocked up on Duncan Hines and canned frosting, slapped the frosting on top of shitty sheet cakes a day before and didn't bother decorating any of them. Stepmom was livid. I ruined her birthday, embarrassed her in front of her friends and family, how could I be so callous, etc. I just told her she compared my cake at Dad's party to Betty Crocker, so she must prefer low-effort cakes. I left shortly after she started crying. Apparently she had planned on instagramming the party, and had planned on my normal quality of care for my desserts. Dad didn't care, he just said it was best if I'm not around her for a bit and we meet up somewhere other than his house. I don't want to be near her again, and I hope her family choked on that dry-ass cake. Edit, thanks for the awards and amazing support. You/game_boy you sure did block me quickly after being a nasty little trollop in DMS, didn't you? Not, whoa, man enough to bully someone publicly? And please, whoever reported me for self-harm concern or whatever the self-care bot was, don't worry. I'm in a wonderful place now. Therapy was never an option, but finding the most perfect man in the world and gaining his and other friends' support has done a world of good, and while my stepmom is a person I despise, I'm not interested in self-harming or even hurting her. My life is full of love now, and the people around me are wonderful. Edit 2, I'm overwhelmed by the supportive and kind comments you've left. Heavy black heart. You're all so sweet and I wish I could hug everyone, especially the people who shared a similar story. My fiancé read the post after a while and we talked about handling Dad and Bitcha Crocker going forward, and I think I'm going to ask Dad about family therapy for the two of us, to properly hash things out. Permanent no contact with his wife is in order. I hope you all have wonderful days, and your cakes are moist and delicious. Sure, tell your kid to bug me about my age, by user Musketeers+2. Let's start with the fact that my brother's wife and I do not get along. Never have, never will. It's mutual, both fault and feelings. Also, she is very sensitive about her age. What she failed to realize is that I'm not. Skip to my 30th birthday and my mom throws a party, including my brother and his family. They have 4 kids, 5, 4, and 1-year-old twins at the time. The kids are playing, we're eating cake, everyone is getting along, and the wife calls over the 4-year to whisper something in his ear. Immediately the kid comes to me and, in typical 4-year-old fashion, yells, "Auntie, guess what?" "What, kiddo?" "Mom says you're 30 now and that's old." My face lit up. I delightedly answered, "Yes, I am. And do you know who's a whole 3 years older than me?" Wide eyes, shaking his head, "Your mom." Everyone except her had a good laugh. Someone took my parking spot, so they got blocked on it all afternoon, by user Salak the Cruel. First of all, sorry for the formatting, I'm on my phone. Second, sorry if for my bad English, it's not my native language. Third, sorry for the long post. Here's the context, I work at a hospital as a lab technician. Our hospital site is near the city center and quite old, so there are no real parking lot, and not many parking spaces available. Between students, patients, hospital workers, and people coming and going for different reasons, it's nearly impossible to find a spot after 8 a.m. Since I work in a small team, only 4, and the evening shift is also on call for any emergency, we have one reserved parking spot. There's a sign saying it's only for on-call lab technicians from our department, and there's a chain with a padlock in front of it. It is located between a pillar and another building's wall, right next to our lab. There is another team in the lab, and we sometimes let them use the parking spot when we have others available or when we come using public transportation, but otherwise we don't share it. So the story. A few weeks ago I started doing the evening shifts. Usually from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., but it can last much longer. I was also on call, so I took my car to the lab. I arrived one morning near 9:45, went to the reserved parking spot, but the chain was down and the spot was taken. At first I thought it was someone from the other team, but I didn't agree to share the spot with anyone and I didn't recognize the car. So I decided to park just in front of it, horizontally so that my car wouldn't be on the road. That way, the other car was stuck between the wall, the pillar, and my car. At first I was thinking I would move it as soon as I found the colleague and he agreed to let me my spot. But it turns out the car didn't belong to anyone from the lab. One tech had witnessed by the window a lady parking in the spot around 9:40. When he opened the window to tell her not to park there, she just said "I'm in a hurry, I won't be long," and left walking fast. I checked if there was a phone number left under the windshield that I could call but nothing. So we decided, you know what? My car is fine where it is. It's not on the road, it leave enough sidewalk for pedestrians to be safe, and it's only blocking her. I don't have time to go find another parking spot at this hour, which would probably be at the end of the hospital site. Plus I have a sticker on my car saying it can park at some places in the hospital for emergencies. And the day went on. I had almost forgotten about it until 4 p.m. when someone called the secretary. The lab's phone number was on my sticker. It was a lady wondering why there was a car parked in front of her. Turns out she was also a hospital worker, from another department, who had arrived late to work and couldn't find a place to park, so she took the chains down and parked there. No idea how she got rid of the padlock, but it was old and weathered, so it might just have broken. She had just finished, "I won't be long my ass," and now she wanted to leave but couldn't. First the secretary, a nice woman but not known for her calm temper, berated by the phone. Then she connected the lady to our phone, where a colleague did pretty much the same. Next, another colleague went out to check on my car. According to said colleague, she looked relieved as she thought he was going to move my car. He just told it was illegal for her to park there and now she had to wait for me or we'd call to have her towed. Meanwhile I was in the middle of a complex procedure that required to be in a white room, sterilized room with controlled atmosphere, sterilized blouse, so I couldn't just leave what I was doing like that. So she waited. And she called twice more to complain that she needed to leave. And twice she got berated by my colleagues until one of them told to stop or they would involve the hospital's security and actually get her towed. In the end I got out of the white room at 5:30 p.m. My colleagues and I thought it was enough, so I changed myself as slowly as possible, took the time to get everything in order and let everyone know in building I was going out for 5 minutes, and finally got out. She was visibly pissed as fuck because it was almost 5:45 p.m., but the threat to get her car towed might have stuck because she didn't say anything except a passive-aggressive "thank you." By the time she could get out it was almost 5:50 p.m., so she waited a little less than 2 hours. Could have been worse since I ended my shift around 7:30 that evening. So far no one else has parked on the spot except us. TLDR, someone stole my parking spot at work, so I blocked her car and she had to wait 2 hours to leave while my colleagues berated her. Edit 1, Format. Edit 2, wow, thank you all for the upvotes. And to all of you saying they would have waited until 7:30 or had her car towed or both, you would have been in your right to do so. I just didn't want to escalate the situation and I thought was not worth making a potential enemy at work. If you liked my story I hope you read this one from u/the toilet destroyer because it's similar a way funnier.